Right, good evening, and thank you for joining us for tonight's discussion on the Lower Swift Creek Area Plan Update. I'm Sharon Peterson, the Long Range Planning Administrator for Wake County. We're excited to see residents who registered to join us here in Zoom tonight, and we welcome everyone who may be watching on Facebook and YouTube. We want to assure everyone that if you can't stay the entire time, or you miss part of the discussion, or you want to share this information with your neighbors, or a blunder occurs because of a technical difficulty on our part, since this is the first virtual meeting we've actually done for an area planning process, you can watch back on WakeGov Facebook and YouTube, or go to wakegov.com/LSC immediately following this session. For those of you who registered, we'll email the link to you. We're going to present you some information about what an area plan is and how we use this tool to help guide growth and development over the next 10 years, and how we use this for this part of the Wake County. However, we need you to help shape that future too, and we want this to be an opportunity for you to share your thoughts and feedback tonight. It's natural to have questions about what's ahead for the places you live, work, and play in. So it's important we answer your questions and fold in your input into our planning. So throughout this session this evening, we'll answer questions from those of you watching via social media, as well as people joining us here in the Zoom. If you're in Zoom with us, you'll see a small chat bubble across the bottom of your screen that reads chat. Click that and you'll see a white box open where you can type in your questions or comments. For those joining on Facebook or YouTube, you can simply type a message in the comments under the video. If you'd like, you can tell us where you live, inside or outside of this planning area. We'll pass those questions on to our team and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible tonight. If you have trouble working the comments or chat, or think of a question after we end the session, you can always email us at areaplan@wakegov.com. Tonight, we have Wake County Planner Selena Everett and Akul Nishawala, who is going to go over our planning process and share what you and your neighbors have had to say thus far about the Lower Swift Creek planning area. Akul?
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm going to be sharing my screen a little bit, giving a little presentation, giving some background information as well as information about the area plan itself. Okay. All right, can everyone see my screen? All right, I'm just going to plow ahead. If I don't hear anything, I'm just going to assume that it's fine. So everyone, welcome to our first virtual meeting of the first area plan. This is an exciting time for us. We realize that it's also a weird time for us, given everything that's happened in the last couple of years. We're excited to have everyone that's with us on YouTube and Facebook, as well as in the Zoom. Hope to have a productive meeting, and there's hopefully we can all walk away learning something tonight, especially us. So we want to hear from what you have to say, as well as your questions and input. So we'll get started. So just to remind everybody, the Lower Swift Creek area is located in this area of Wake County. It's southeast of Garner along the Johnson County line. And you'll see it does take an interesting shape, and we'll talk about exactly why it took this specific shape later on in the presentation. All right, so just to start off, we're gonna start with some planning 101, some introduction into the concept of planning and how that works in and around Wake County. So Wake County, people think of it as one large area, but it's very specific and it's divided, and it gets a little complicated, but we're here to simplify that a little bit. So Wake County itself, those areas are considered unincorporated. Wake County itself does not provide utility service, and what I mean by that is water or sewer. So if you live in an area of Wake County that doesn't have water and sewer, or are served by well and septic, you're very likely probably in the county's jurisdiction. Wake County has its own development ordinances, and by that we mean by regulations and requirements for being able to build in and around our jurisdiction. We also have our own zoning districts and a comprehensive plan. Now, within Wake County, there are 12 municipalities, 1 city, Raleigh, and 11 towns. And these towns and municipalities have corporate limits, and these can be expanded by voluntary annexation. So nowadays, it is illegal for a town to annex a property without the permission of the property owner. And usually how it works now is that a property owner will go to that town that is nearest to it, and we'll talk about which one that might be for you a little bit later in the presentation as well, and request to be annexed. So usually in return for annexation, yes, you are paying town taxes and you can vote in town elections, but you are also receiving services like water and sewer, and you are then being protected by that local fire department or the police department. Now, these 12 municipalities have their own development ordinances as well, zoning districts and comprehensive plans. So it can get a little bit tricky when you're trying to go through and navigate which ones, but if you know which one you're in, then it's a little bit easier and you can request the correct planning department to help you out. Now, extraterritorial jurisdictions, otherwise known as ETJs, is a little bit in the middle. And what I mean by that is that it extends planning and zoning jurisdictions out into unincorporated parts of the county, but they're still considered part of the county in other regards. So you're still served by the sheriff's department and you still aren't getting water and sewer. However, it is the state statutes have seen fit, and it also exists in other states. So this is not only limited to North Carolina, but those areas closest to any corporate limits are most likely going to be developed within the towns or will likely be developed into the town at some point, but that's not a given. So how the town helps control growth or the certain types of growth is by having this ETJ. So if you live in an ETJ area and you feel like redoing or redeveloping or improving your property, instead of coming to the county for a permit, you would go to that respective municipality. So jurisdictions in and around Wake County are determined by annexation agreement boundaries. So municipalities will come up with an agreement of where in the county their annexation could potentially go up to. And of course, that abuts another jurisdiction. So for example, you have a difference between Fuquay, Varina, and Garner. We'll use 1010 Road, for example. If you're familiar with that, most areas north of 1010 Road are in Garner's jurisdiction, and any areas south of 1010 Road are Fuquay Varina's jurisdiction, meaning that as big as Fuquay or Garner want to get, they cannot go beyond that boundary. And this is important because it doesn't correspond with zip codes or mailing address. You could have a mailing address that reads a certain town, but you might not be in that town's jurisdiction. I'll give you a great example. I used to work for the town of Fuquay Varina. We would often get calls from folks who actually lived in Harnett County asking about their property. Well, Fuquay Varina doesn't have any jurisdiction in Harnett County, but they said, well, I don't understand. I have a Fuquay Varina mailing address. Well, zip codes and your mailing address are determined by where your mail comes from. So whichever post office is in charge of sorting and delivering your mail is how your zip code and your mailing address is determined. So looking at corporate limits, on the left here, you can see how the corporate limits are differentiated between the municipalities. Each color is a different municipality. Obviously, Raleigh is the biggest one here in the middle. You can see how they all kind of spread out between the different ones. And then we go to the right-hand map, you can see this is extraterritorial jurisdiction, otherwise known as the planning jurisdiction. So these are the areas in which, if you live in this area, for example, right here, but you are not within Raleigh's corporate limits and you wanted to improve your property, you would still go to the city of Raleigh for any permits or development ordinances. And here's what that looks like altogether. You can see there's a lot more planning jurisdiction and it extends out beyond the corporate limits. The size of these planning jurisdictions or ETJs are determined by population. So if a population is growing for a certain municipality, then that municipality can make a request to Wake County to expand or extend its ETJ by certain mileage. You might have heard there's a recent extension of this type in the news a couple of years ago with Fuquay Marina, but this type of thing is not uncommon. And it must go through the public hearing process, which is quite rigorous in order for this to happen. So a little bit more about planning. When we hear zoning, what does that mean? Well, zoning means how a certain property is currently used. So any property, it has a zoning district placed on it, or that property is within a current zoning district. So that means if you live within a certain district, you're allowed to do X things in your property. However, if you live in a different district, you might be able to do Y things. Usually in the United States, zoning is separated by residential and commercial, industrial, and so forth. So that way the uses are separated, so then they don't really, the issue is nuisance. It stems from nuisance laws, so that you're not living next to a farm that maybe is working at different times of night, or an industrial area that might be dangerous for you to grow up in or live next to. So development ordinances, like I said before, are different for each municipality and the county. And those development ordinances actually lay out what permitted uses are allowed for each zoning district. Again, there's differences between municipal and county zoning districts, but however, any zoning district, if you are going to rezone a property, for example, you might have heard that it must be consistent with a land use plan. So what is a land use plan? Well, the land use plan determines what the future use of a property should be in 20 or 30 years. Now, this is done by public input. This is not done by municipalities or one person sitting at a desk saying this should be this should be that. They're highly, there's a lot of input that goes on, and this is one of those examples of how we do that. We ask the public for their input in terms of, all right, this is how this property is being used now, or this area is being used now, but what do you foresee in the future? What do you think it should be? Maybe it's nothing, maybe it's the same, maybe it's not, but we still don't know until we ask the question. And when I say they're dynamic, they're always changing. Nothing is, so opinion of someone today could be different in 5 or 10 years. There could be different folks living there. So they're always amendable and they're always changeable, but that's done through a rigorous public process. So this is what the zoning districts in Wake County look like. And again, I'm talking about the jurisdiction, not the county as a whole. So the yellow are residential, and then as well, we have watershed districts. So those are a little bit more stringent in terms of what development can be allowed because they are in water supply watersheds. And we want to protect these resources. All these requirements and regulations are in our unified development ordinances. Again, it tells you what permitted uses there are and what requirements you need to be able to do certain things. A great resource that we have here, it's run by the city of Raleigh, but it's also county-wide. And let's see if I can get to it. All right, I'm going to bring this over. And so this is a resource that actually we planners use for figuring out property, where a property is located, what jurisdiction it's in, whether there's water and sewer nearby. So a lot of questions that can be answered, we actually use this to answer them for you. So here's the county as a whole. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but if you've dealt with GIS or maps before, it's once you kind of figure out a few basics, it's not too bad. You can put in any address or pin here, and it'll start searching it. I'll put in just some random numbers and see what comes out. 543. All right, let's try East 543 102 Heisler Street. And it takes you right there. It opens it up and it highlights, and it gives you all sorts of information about that property. You can look up the history of it, anything that's publicly available. You can also, if you click on these layers right here, see what jurisdiction it's in. And let's see, we will do planning jurisdiction. So when you put a check next to it, that means that layer is then turned on. All right. So if you're not sure, you can zoom out, but you can also just click on it and it'll tell you. All right, and so you can go to the next feature. So it's in Cary's planning jurisdiction. So now we know that. And so if you live in this area, you're not sure who you need to talk to about a permit for an accessory dwelling unit or a porch or a deck, then you would know through here that, oh, okay, I live in Cary's planning jurisdiction, so I need to call their planning department to get what I need. So this is a great resource. It's a great tool that we use here in Wake County, and all of our municipal partners do it as well. So you can see it's just that map that I was showing you before. And so you can really zoom in and get what you need to know from this resource. So speaking of land use planning documents, the land use plan for Wake County, we've had one since the 1990s. And it was time for, like I said, they usually go for 20 to 30 years, but Wake County, we felt that 20 years was good enough and we needed to update it. There were a lot of things in there that we felt that we could improve, and we felt like we did. We went through a 2-year process with public input and drafts and making sure that we were reflecting what the population was telling us. And in April 2021, we adopted our new plan called Plan Wake. This is our comprehensive plan. But again, even though we adopted it last year, like I said, it's fluid and dynamic. These are living documents. They're not supposed to be just printed and put on a shelf somewhere and forgotten about. They're supposed to be analyzed, updated, and amended. And even though it was adopted last year, we still feel like there are opportunities through this area planning process to see if there are any improvements that we can make. And when we're talking about a more localized level, such as Lower Swift Creek area, we feel that Plan Wake will become a better plan for that. Before I move on to the area plans, are there any questions so far? And I'll check the chat.
Yes, cool.
Yes.
We do have one question from Robert from Facebook.
Okay.
And he would like to know if there are plans to widen Highway 50 Benson Road between Timber Drive and Garner and Highway 42.
Okay.
Selena, do you have a response to that?
Yes, Sharon. Once again, that particular area, part of that road, it actually is maintained by the town of Gardner in regards to their improvements. So I definitely will post a link for that. But in the other portion of Highway 50 or Benson is actually maintained by North Carolina Department of Transportation. And looking at their state improvement plan, I currently do not see any proposed improvements or widening of Highway 50. But I will also place the contact information for DOT as well as the link to their traffic impact improvement plan into the chat as well. But a great contact for those improvements would be the town of Gardner and North Carolina Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Selena. If we don't have any other questions, we can move on, but we'll definitely, if there are more questions, don't despair. We will have plenty of time at the end for question and answer, but please keep those questions rolling, and that was a great one. All right, so let's get into land use planning in terms of the area land use plans. Under the old land use plan for Plan Wake, there were 5 plans that spanned all of Wake County's unincorporated areas. These were localized plans, again, developed with extensive municipal and public input. And even though Plan Wake was adopted, these are still governing documents until we adopt new ones, like the one we're doing for Lower Swift Creek. And you'll notice that there's certain areas like Falls Lake that actually aren't part of any current area land use plan. That's one of the things we wanted to address. So these are the new area plan boundaries. So we've decided to rename them as well because there was a lot of municipal expansion since the last time we had a land use plan adoption. So we wanted to reflect that in these new geographies. You'll see that the gray area is that planning jurisdiction I was talking about before, and it takes up quite a bit of the area plan boundaries that we're talking about. And you'll see, for example, our plan right here, Lower Swift Creek, there's a lot of Garner's planning jurisdiction that falls within our planning boundaries. Well, why are we doing that? Because we work in concert with our municipal partners, and we don't want to just carve out those portions that are outside, that are within our jurisdiction. Planning is a very comprehensive process. We need to take into account such things as municipal boundaries, municipal growth, water and sewer extensions, and all sorts of things that are happening with our partners and neighbors. There isn't just a line in the sand when you go out to this area that says, all right, well, you can stop being in Garner now, and now we're in Wake County. Planning and development doesn't work like that, so we want to make sure that that's reflected in our plans. So into the lower Swift Creek area specifically. So like I said, here's a zoom in of the area, and you can see the darker areas are the corporate limits, and we have planning jurisdiction in orange. And the rest of it is unincorporated Wake County. And you'll also notice that there is a long line going right through our planning area, and that is 540, the new 540 that's being constructed right now. Well, it's not there, so why is that on here? Well, it's going to be there soon, and part of our plan is being able to plan for the future in terms of things like this. This is a huge project that's cutting right through our planning area, and part of our process is we want to get out ahead of it. We don't want to be stuck behind the 8 ball, and once 540 is constructed, we don't want to have said that there are any missed opportunities. We want residents to have every opportunity to dictate how development occurs in and around 540 area. So I was talking about Plan Wake earlier. What did Plan Wake accomplish? Well, we created what's called development framework map. Now, these are areas that, again, through extensive public input and with input through our municipal partners, we're able to determine new classification of land use. And we've come up with 5 different classifications. We have community, community reserve, rural, transit focused, and walkable center. And if you look at our study area, you'll notice that there are large areas of community and a few areas of walkable center. Well, cool. You might say these areas are already developed. I don't understand how this could be a walkable center. We wanted to identify areas that we thought would benefit from such things as sidewalks. So it doesn't have to fit the form of maybe a city that we're looking for, but how can we improve these areas in a way that benefits residents? And I'll tell you, and once we get into some of the feedback we've gotten from the engagement, I think there's a lot of opportunity in this area, but we want to make sure that we're getting this right. So even though that it's a walkable center, there are opportunities here, but maybe this isn't the right fit for this. Part of this process through the area planning process is make sure that Plan Wake is crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's when it comes to development potential. A little bit about our area. It has just about 7,000 folks living in it. And there are 24 subdivisions in the north area and 33 in the south. So much more residential in this area. And the total acreage is about 7,870 acres. We also have what are called voluntary agricultural districts, and we have 2 of those in this area. Voluntary agricultural districts are a program that we do with soil and water conservation here at Wake County for basically safekeeping of agricultural uses. So if a certain farm use is worried about development in their area and they want to keep their farm a farm, they can opt to become a voluntary ag district. This lasts for 10 years and it provides certain protections as well. But it's been a really popular resource for our agricultural partners in and around Wake County. Everyone knows about the development pressures that are happening with us. And this is a great way for us to make sure that those agricultural areas that need to stay agricultural do that. We also have what are called 5 activity centers. And these are areas within Wake County that are designated as potential commercial centers. So basically where non-residential activity can happen. And I'll get into where those actually are in a little bit. And part of our discussion, hopefully, is whether or not these activity centers are appropriate where they are. We want to, there's a lot of traffic with activity centers such as this, and development brings traffic and a host of other issues, but also brings opportunities. So we want to make sure we're striking that right balance. So how can you tell us what we need to know? Well, we have a website that I'm sure you've seen on our webpage. It has background info, and I'll get into that as well. It's in what's called a story map. We've also released a couple surveys, and our brand new one's called Proximity and Access Survey. We're talking about where things should be in terms of non-residential use and how you would like to get there. We also have an interactive map where you can place ideas, suggestions, or even things that you like on a map, and other folks can respond or like that, as well as an ideas page. And so similar to the map, but just kind of trying to get some discussions going. We've been pretty active on social media and email listservs, but we also would love to hear your ideas on opportunities for engagement. You know your community better than us. You know what populations need to hear this, where it may be something that we're missing. A big part of this engagement is making sure that we're getting to the right people, especially right now in COVID, everything's virtual. So that's a bridge that we'd like to cross, but as well, you know, we're trying to get folks who aren't maybe computer savvy or cell phone savvy. But any opportunities that you might have, we want to hear about it. So I wanted to get a little bit into the website really quickly. Here's our webpage, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about the story map and show that with you. And if you haven't seen it, it's a great resource. Just give some background information about your area, things that you might just not know, or things you just need some context with to help you understand what's going on. Same with this. If there's something you want to see, let us know. A lot of this information is located on iMaps that I was sharing before, but it might be helpful for folks just to be able to see this all in one place. So here's where we go over the land use plans, and here are the zoning districts. And what I've done here is I've included both Wake County zoning districts and the town of Garner zoning district. So you can see how they kind of work together. Let's see if I can zoom in here. And so you can see where your property is. If you want, you can search for your property and zoom in and see what zoning district you're in. You can also see where those voluntary agricultural centers are, agricultural districts, excuse me, and activity centers. So let's take a look at those real quick. So the green is our VADs, or voluntary ag districts. And you'll see that, again, 540 really plays a part in how these are shaped, especially this one. So we've been in communication with our soil and water folks, and they've also been in contact with this property owner as well. So it looks like some of my things aren't loading, but I think because I'm doing a lot of things on my computer. So we'll just back out of this. We have the Plan Wake Development Framework here as well. And this is a great resource because this is the town of Garner's comp plan. And as they're supposed to, they are planning for beyond their municipal area, which is, you know, you have to think ahead. That doesn't mean that's always going to happen. So we're trying to use this to help inform our planning process as well. We've been in talks with the town of Garner, and they'd love to hear feedback that we get from this on how their plan should look. So that's part of the feedback loop as well. Here's a look at the residential subdivisions. There are quite a few. Like I said, there's 33 in this area, in the southern area. And then lastly, we have what's called the social equity and vulnerability map. And if it loads, let's see if it loads. All right, well, it looks like it's not loading. My computer knows it's almost bedtime. Basically, and again, I believe we have this on our webpage, but if anyone has any more questions about the social equity and vulnerability map, we'll send you that link. So basically what we've done is taken our census data. It basically identified health and well-being characteristics of the community. This includes housing, education, food security, poverty levels, and income, among others. So through these metrics, we're able to identify certain areas that might be more vulnerable than others. And so then we can maybe direct correct resources to that population. But it's a really great resource, and our folks, our colleagues here at Wake County have done a lot of work making sure that this is up to date. As well, the link to the actual atlas itself is located on the story map, so please be sure to check that out. So some of the feedback that we've gotten so far, this is a word cloud. It basically takes all the comments that we received and gives us visually what the biggest concerns are, or what the biggest keywords are. And you'll notice right there in the middle, traffic. That's the biggest concern or the biggest subject that people have been talking about. And it's a valid concern. Traffic is crazier than ever, and people want to move to Wake County more than ever. There's something about the water here. I'm not sure what it is, but we're all wanting to move to Wake County or the Triangle. And part of our job here and part of the process that we're trying to see is, we understand traffic's the issue, but how can we, instead of widening roads or thinking about things in the way that we normally do, maybe we can think about it in other ways, of greenways, sidewalks. These are a lot of the comments that we're getting, and this is exactly what we need to hear. So we'll talk about next steps, and then we'll switch to the Q&A. Right now, we're doing our public meeting. Next, we'll hope to have a draft plan based on the comments that we received, and then we'll do our second round of public engagement. And we're really hoping that this is an in-person meeting. When we first scheduled this meeting back at the beginning of the year, it was looking pretty hard to imagine that people would be out and about and doing in-person activities such as they are right now. And now, so you'll think of it today, it's kind of crazy that we're doing virtual meetings all right now, because it seems like a lot of things are opening up and COVID numbers are looking really great. So we're trying to be flexible. We want to make sure that we get out there and meet people. There's that value you just can't get from a computer screen, that we're looking to get people in the community to come out and give us their input and interact with us. Then plan proposals, summer 22, plan approval, hopefully fall 22, and then we implement the plan in winter of 2022 or 2023. And again, this is the first of 6 plans, area plans, where this is the first one. So we're kind of creating the mold here. Hopefully when we get to the other ones, we'll have a better system and making sure and use what we've learned from this experience to help drive us forward. And with that, I will leave it for Q&A, and I will stop sharing my screen so we can see anyone that feels like talking. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Akul. This is time now to respond to any more questions, and I think we do have one in the chat from Barbara. And the question is the town of Garner represented in this meeting tonight? And let's see, Selena, you have a response to that?
Yes, Sharon. If we're not mistaken, we believe that a representative or someone from the town of Gardner may have registered, but we're not sure if they're actually here. But as well as part of the planning process, we continue to be in communication with the town of Gardner throughout the process, and when we receive input from our citizens in this area, or any ideas or suggestions or questions in regards to improvements as we have in this particular area. We continue to reach out to the town of Gardner to get responses as well, so we can relay it back or try to incorporate it into the changes or in the proposed Swift Creek Land Management Plan. So we do continue to reach out to the town of Gardner, whether they're currently in this meeting or representative, but they have been in communication with us, and we continue to be in communication with them.
Thank you, Selena. We also have another question from our social media, and that is, can we add sidewalks and greenways to make the area more walkable and generally safer? Akul or Selena?
Selena, you want to take this one, or you want me to take it?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
as part of the review and actually incorporation of this plan, that's one thing we will take into consideration in regards to the sidewalks and greenways. That's why in regards to the surveys, we kind of pose the question in regards to some things that you would like to see keep remain in certain areas, as well as, like I said, the county does have a parks department as well as a facility design that kind of coordinate with municipalities when it comes to park or partner with them for greenways. But that's one of the things in regards to developing this plan to take into consideration. In regards to sidewalks, that is also being looked at as part of this plan, and being that most of the roads where sidewalks usually align with is going to be maintained by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. That is a discussion for internal roads when it comes to residential subdivisions. But for major roads such as Benson, that is going to fall more along the line of NCDOT. So as more with this plan, we look at any new proposed development, whether commercial or residential development, where we can incorporate trails, bike trails, or sidewalks. So once again, that's part of our meeting or outreach to see what you would like to see encourage and try to incorporate into the plan that we're reviewing currently.
And Selena, I'll add that to that as well. Part of our second meeting, hopefully we can start when we meet with you, we'll be able to bring maps and have you all show us exactly where those sidewalks and greenways should go. And we would incorporate that into the larger plan as well. This is a land use plan, but that doesn't mean that transportation issues such as sidewalks and greenways can't be incorporated into the larger land use plan. They complement each other, and we're not going to say, oh, this is a land use plan, so we can't talk about that. It's all important, it's all needed, and we all need to hear it. And hopefully the opportunity when we have an in-person meeting for you to be able to show us exactly where those opportunity areas are.
Okay, we have another question in the chat. How does this plan implement water and sewer?
So water and sewer is handled by the municipalities. So they provide the service. Wake County does not provide water and sewer service. So really the short answer is we would try to identify areas that would need it, but extending water and sewer lines is an expensive proposition usually, and that's required by any municipal development. So if you are developing a residential subdivision under the municipality, they require water and sewer. So the developer usually is the one that's footing the bill for those extensions as part of the requirements for developing. So if there are areas that need water and sewer, we would identify those areas and relay that to the town of Garner.
Okay. Are there any more questions from those who are in Zoom or on Facebook or YouTube? Okay, there's one more additional question that has come up. How can we protect open space from development?
Sharon, that's actually a great question. I think when we look at it as a land development or land use plan, we look at how can they actually work together as part of development. What can be a trade-off? How much open space? How much greenway? How much trees and vegetation can you protect as part of the development? So in allowing certain uses or certain things to develop in a certain area, how much open space are you willing to trade off? So trying to get a combination and try to have a balance of development and open space. That is our goal. So one is, like I said, conditional upon approval, but just look at where do we want first, where do we want greenway and open space to be protected? And as part of development, encourage or require certain open space amount or acreage or forestry to be protected.
Right. Thank you, Selena. We have a little bit more time. If you have any more questions or comments. And just a reminder, if you joined us late, missed part of the discussion, or want to share this information with your neighbors or anyone else, immediately following this session, you can watch the video. Oh, there's a
So
question.
yeah, Sharon, there's a couple questions in the chat. I definitely want to address those. So Lester asked us, what is the number one thing you want feedback on, and what's the best way to get you feedback? It's a great question, Lester. Thank you for asking that. So we want feedback on what you want to see in your area, in your neighborhood, in the community, the type of developments you want to see. If someone could share the link to our website, there's that interactive map that I was showing you before. That's a really great place for you to just say, look, I want this here. I want this there. And you can say things that even, maybe they're not all bad. Like there are things that you like about your neighborhood. We want to hear about the things that make your neighborhood what it is, and say, I like these trees. I like this trail over here. I want to spend more time here. So that our interactive map is really the number one place for feedback for this. But we really just want to hear your thoughts. We don't live in this area. You do. This is your neighborhood. This is your community. Whatever feedback you can give us in terms of helping us understand context and the type of neighborhoods you live in and the type of development you might want to see or don't want to see is how we're gonna best is what we're really looking for. And who would be the contact to ask? So thank you, Lester. Thank you for that great question. And another great question here is, who would be the contact to ask about planning sound barrier walls along 540 where it crosses through our community? I believe, Selena, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is another NCDOT question. That contact that she shared before in the chat is who you would contact for any 540 specific questions or concerns. But yes, similar kind of jumping off of that, it's not just the sound barrier walls, but kind of the development that occurs in and around those interchanges. We want to see what kind of developments or things would you like to see in and around those areas. Would you want transit? I know there is a lot of transportation studies that are looking at that 70 corridor as a potential transit area and opportunity for connecting the county. Is that something you would want to see? I know a lot of folks that live out there prefer to drive, and that's why they live out there. But what are opportunity areas for transit or other forms of transportation that you might want to see in your area as well?
And Akula, I think also with NC 540 is the Turnpike Authority may also play a role in that. And we'll get further information. We'll go back to both DOT and the Turnpike Authority to see who actually is the agency to talk to about the sound walls. And looks like Selena has placed a lot of information about the sound walls in the chat. Thank you. Okay, that came from another planner with our planning agency. So thank you to that person. Okay, just double checking, make sure I don't miss any more information or that comments or questions in the chat. All right, so if we don't have any more, we really thank you for taking time out tonight. We wanted to at least extend an hour to introduce the planning process and to make sure that we contacted and gave the residents or property owners, business owners, an opportunity. And again, for more information on the Lower Swift Creek Area Plan or any planning and growth information or question that you have, visit wakegov.com/planning. And if there are no more questions or comments from both our registrants from Zoom and those who are listening, viewing us on Facebook and YouTube, this will conclude our program for tonight. Thank you for joining us, and good night.